911, what's the location of the emergency?
My daughter is missing.
What's your address, ma'am?
She's gone. We can't find her anywhere. I've called all her friends.
How old is she?
11.
Okay, what's her name, ma'am?
Carlie, C-A-R-L-I-E.
And last name?
Brucia, B-R-U-C-I-A.
On February 1st, 2004, much of the United States was celebrating. Nearly 90 million people were watching the Super Bowl as the New England Patriots defeated the Carolina Panthers in one of the most watched games in history. Homes were filled with noise and excitement, and streets across the country were noticeably quieter than usual. But in Sarasota, Florida, that Sunday evening would mark the beginning of a nightmare. At 6:21 p.m., a surveillance camera positioned behind a car wash on Bee Ridge Road recorded a brief encounter that would later become one of the most haunting images in modern American crime history. The footage showed a young girl walking alone, wearing a red shirt, blue jeans, and a pink backpack. Moments later, a man stepped into view, spoke to her briefly, then took her by the arm and led her away. The girl was Carlie Brucia. She was 11 years old. Within days, the footage would be broadcast nationwide, freezing a few terrifying seconds in time. But before the video ever reached the public, Carlie had already vanished. Carlie Jane Brucia was born on March 16, 1992, in Long Island, New York, to Joseph Brucia and Susan Brucia. After her parents divorced, Carlie moved with her mother to Sarasota, where she would grow up surrounded by family and friends. She continued to visit relatives in New York during school breaks and holidays, especially enjoying Christmas with her extended family. Susan later remarried Stephen Spinn, and together they raised Carlie and her younger brother. Those who knew Carlie described her as affectionate, energetic, and full of warmth. Teachers at McIntosh Middle School, where she was a sixth-grade student, remembered her as a child who greeted people with hugs and a bright smile. Her school principal once referred to her as a shining light. Carlie enjoyed singing in the school chorus, playing sports, spending time with her friends, and shopping at the mall. She loved her cat Charlie and admired pop star Jennifer Lopez. To those around her, Carlie was simply a happy child who loved life. On Saturday, January 31st, 2004, Carlie stayed overnight at a friend's house. The following day, she planned to return home in time to watch the Super Bowl with her family. At approximately 6:15 p.m., Carlie began walking home, a distance of about 1 mile. Her route took her along Bee Ridge Road, a normally busy street, though traffic was lighter that evening due to the game. Concerned about Carlie walking alone, her friend's mother called Susan Brucia to confirm that it was okay. Susan said she had not given permission for Carlie to walk home by herself, especially along such a busy road. She immediately informed her husband, Stephen, who got into the car to pick Carlie up. As Stephen drove along Bee Ridge Road, scanning sidewalks and intersections, he could not find her. He turned around and retraced the route again. Carlie was nowhere in sight. As minutes passed, concern turned to panic. Despite the unusually quiet streets, Carlie seemed to have disappeared without a trace. By 7:15 p.m., just 1 hour after Carlie had left her friend's house, the family called 911, and Carlie Brucia was reported missing.
911, what's the location of the emergency?
My daughter is missing.
What's your address, ma'am? And your phone number? Okay. Has she been missing before?
No, she had a fight with her girlfriend. She decided to walk home, and we've been driving around for about an hour and a half. And it's now an hour and a half walk. She's gone. We can't find her anywhere. I've called all her friends.
How old is she?
11.
And when was the last time that she was seen?
It was at 6 o'clock, Steve. Around 6 o'clock.
And she was at a friend's house?
Yeah.
Okay, what's her name, ma'am?
Carlie, C-A-R-L-I-E.
And last name?
Brucia, B-R-U-C-I-A. She's just shy of 5 feet.
Okay. Do you know how much she weighs?
She's around 120 pounds.
Okay, what color hair does she have?
Dirty blonde.
And what color eyes?
Blue.
Deputies from the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office responded immediately. Officers canvassed the neighborhood, knocked on doors, and spoke with neighbors and Carlie's friends. They returned to the house where Carlie had spent the night and attempted to reconstruct her movements. The search continued late into the night, but by 3 a.m., there was still no sign of Carlie. By the next morning, more than 12 hours had passed since she was last seen. When Carlie did not arrive at school, investigators escalated their efforts. Bloodhounds were brought in and given one of Carlie's pillowcases to pick up her scent. The dogs traced her path along Bee Ridge Road. The trail ended suddenly behind a car wash located at 4715 Bee Ridge Road. This abrupt ending raised immediate concern. Detectives contacted the car wash owner, Mike Evanoff, who informed them that the property was equipped with motion-activated surveillance cameras. Investigators began reviewing the footage. 2 of the cameras showed nothing unusual. One captured only the main road. Another showed an empty parking lot. But the 3rd camera, positioned behind the car wash, told a very different story. The timestamp read 6:21 p.m. on February 1st. The footage showed Carlie walking alone behind the building. Seconds later, a man entered the frame. He appeared to be approximately 5 feet 8 inches tall, with dark hair and visible tattoos on his arm. He was wearing a mechanic-style shirt with a name tag, though the name could not be clearly read. The man stopped Carlie. They appeared to exchange a few words. Then he grabbed her arm and led her away, out of view of the camera. The entire encounter lasted only seconds. To investigators, the implications were unmistakable. Carlie was in immediate and grave danger. Stephen Spinn was asked to come to the sheriff's office to answer questions. Based on phone records and corroborating information, he was quickly ruled out as a suspect. However, Stephen shared an observation that caught investigators' attention. While driving up and down Bee Ridge Road searching for Carlie, Stephen recalled seeing a red truck repeatedly traveling the same stretch of road. The truck had also been parked outside the home where Carlie had stayed the night before. The man in the surveillance video appeared to be wearing a mechanic's uniform, similar to those worn by tow truck drivers. The owner of the red truck, a man named Ron, lived at the same residence where Carlie had spent the night. He was brought in for questioning. Ron denied any involvement. His employer confirmed that he had been at work at the time of the abduction, and his time cards supported his alibi. A search of his truck revealed nothing linking him to Carlie. Ron was ruled out. Despite the chilling footage, investigators still did not know who the man was or where Carlie had been taken. As detectives continued to examine the video frame by frame, they noticed something else. 3 minutes before Carlie appeared on camera, a pale yellow 1992 Buick Century station wagon entered the car wash parking lot. The vehicle then exited, drove down Bee Ridge Road, slowed, and turned back toward the car wash. For investigators, this was a critical development. As the search intensified, the Sarasota community rallied. Volunteers searched fields, neighborhoods, and wooded areas. Missing posters bearing Carlie's smiling face appeared on telephone poles and storefronts. The mayor referred to Carlie as Sarasota's child, emphasizing that the entire city was invested in bringing her home. At a press conference, Susan Brucia addressed the public directly, her voice breaking as she spoke. "I love you, Carlie," she said. "Please help me bring my daughter home." 2 days after Carlie's abduction, as the surveillance footage was broadcast across local news stations, a woman watching from her home felt a sudden, unsettling recognition. She believed she knew the man in the video, and she decided to call police. The phone call came 2 days after Carlie Brucia disappeared. A woman watching the evening news had seen the surveillance footage from the car wash and felt an immediate sense of recognition. She called her husband into the room and played the clip again. Both of them agreed they knew the man. He was a former business associate, someone they had worked with closely in the past. The woman contacted law enforcement and provided a name: Joseph Peter Smith. Detectives from the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, along with FBI agents, moved quickly. Smith was 37 years old, originally from Brooklyn, New York, and a father of 3. He had an extensive criminal record dating back to the early 1990s, including multiple arrests for drug-related offenses. At the time of Carlie's disappearance, Smith was on probation and unemployed. When officers arrived at the address provided, neighbors confirmed someone was home. After waiting and receiving no response, investigators learned that Smith was under active supervision by a probation officer. After coordinating with her, Smith was asked to come outside. Standing before the officers, Smith appeared calm. He denied being at the car wash on the evening Carlie disappeared. When shown a still image from the surveillance footage, he acknowledged that it resembled him, but insisted it was not him. He allowed officers to examine his tattoos and agreed to searches of both his vehicle and the room he was renting. Inside his room, detectives found a mechanic-style uniform with a name tag on the front. While nothing directly linked the clothing to Carlie, it closely matched what the suspect in the video was wearing. During a search of Smith's brown Lincoln, officers found drug paraphernalia, which resulted in his arrest for violating the terms of his probation. At that point, investigators still lacked definitive proof tying Smith to Carlie's abduction. As the search continued, detectives learned that a yellow Buick Century station wagon, matching the vehicle seen near the car wash, belonged to Naomi, one of the homeowners where Smith rented a room. Naomi initially told police that Smith had been on the phone with his estranged wife around the time of the abduction, seemingly providing him with an alibi. However, hours later, Naomi's husband Jeff came forward with a different account. Jeff explained that on the evening Carlie disappeared, Smith had asked to borrow the Buick for a short time. When Jeff woke the following morning, Smith was gone, and when he returned later, he appeared unusually clean and upbeat. Jeff also noticed that the back seat of the vehicle had been folded down and that items inside had been disturbed. Sensing that something was wrong, Jeff voluntarily turned the vehicle over to law enforcement for forensic testing. With this new information, Smith's alibi collapsed. Smith was read his Miranda rights, and he requested an attorney. Investigators now believed they were closing in, but they still did not know where Carlie was. On the evening of February 4th, 2004, Smith's brother, John Smith, arrived at the sheriff's office and spoke with FBI agents. John stated that he and Joseph were not close, but on the night of Carlie's disappearance, Joseph had called him around 8 p.m. later. When John saw the surveillance footage on television, he immediately recognized his brother. His girlfriend noticed it as well, particularly the way the man in the video walked. Joseph's gait had changed following back surgery. John recalled that later that same night Joseph appeared at his home, acting strangely. He was wearing his mechanic's uniform but had on boots instead of his usual shoes. Joseph did not explain why he was there, and John refused to let him inside. The following day, Joseph reportedly behaved erratically at work, washing his hands repeatedly and telling his employer that he might need to leave the state at any time. John told investigators that if his brother was responsible, he would never voluntarily confess. Despite mounting circumstantial evidence, investigators still needed information that would lead them to Carlie. On February 5th, Joseph was allowed to speak privately with his mother and brother at the police station. Afterward, John told officers that Joseph had not said anything of significance. No surveillance was placed on the family. Later that night, John contacted the FBI again, sounding confused. He believed his phone was being monitored. Investigators realized that Joseph must have told his brother something, leading John to think authorities already knew. FBI agents immediately went to John's home. There, the truth finally emerged. John provided directions to a location near 6221 Proctor Road, close to Interstate 75, behind the Central Church of Christ. In the early hours of February 6, 2004, law enforcement officers searched the area. In thick brush behind the church, they discovered Carlie Brucia's body. The discovery ended all remaining hope. An autopsy later confirmed that Carlie had been taken to a secluded area, restrained, and killed. Forensic evidence linked Joseph Smith directly to the crime. His DNA was found on Carlie's clothing, and fibers from her red shirt, along with strands of her hair, were recovered from the yellow Buick. Investigators determined that Smith had disposed of Carlie's clothing and backpack in separate locations in an attempt to avoid detection. Sheriff Bill Balkwill personally went to Carlie's home to inform her family. Susan Brucia's grief was immediate and overwhelming. Shortly afterward, the sheriff addressed the public, announcing that Carlie's body had been found and that Joseph Peter Smith was under arrest for her abduction and murder. The community of Sarasota was devastated. Memorials appeared near Carlie's home and, at the church where she was found. McIntosh Middle School opened its doors to students and families, offering grief counseling. Parents across the city were fearful, reluctant to allow their children to walk alone even short distances. On February 20th, 2004, Joseph Smith was formally charged with kidnapping, sexual battery, and first-degree murder. Because the crimes occurred in Florida, prosecutors sought the death penalty. At trial, the evidence against Smith was extensive: the surveillance footage, forensic findings from the Buick, DNA results, witness testimony, and Smith's own statements to family members. The jury found him guilty, and in December 2005, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection. In the years that followed, Smith filed multiple appeals. Changes in Florida's death penalty laws led to repeated legal delays and resentencing hearings, prolonging the case and reopening wounds for Carlie's family. Carlie's father, Joseph Brucia, became increasingly vocal, criticizing the justice system for allowing Smith, who had violated probation prior to the crime, to remain free. In response to Carlie's death, her father advocated for changes in the law aimed at stricter supervision of repeat offenders. Proposed legislation, often referred to as Carlie's Law, sought to prevent similar tragedies by addressing gaps in parole and probation enforcement. While the law did not ultimately pass, Carlie's case continued to influence national conversations about criminal justice and child safety. In July 2021, before any final resolution could be reached, Joseph Peter Smith died in prison at the age of 55 from natural causes. His death ended all remaining legal proceedings. For Carlie's family, the news brought mixed emotions: relief that the process was finally over, and pain that full accountability would never be realized. Years later, the Garden Memorial behind the Central Church of Christ still stands as a place of remembrance. Volunteers continue efforts to maintain it, ensuring Carlie is not forgotten. Carlie Brucia was only 11 years old. She had a family who loved her, friends who missed her, and a future that was taken from her far too soon. Her case remains a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked criminal behavior and the importance of vigilance, accountability, and community responsibility. As her father once said, Carlie is never far from their thoughts. Her memory lives on, not only in the hearts of those who knew her, but in the lessons her story continues to teach.